Let's further unpack this by speaking now to security expert as well as, of course, the director, the senior training coordinator at ISS, Mr. Willem. Willem, sir, it's always great to have you with us on the show. Welcome. So let's first unpack this harrowing as well as brazen attack on police officers by, firstly, a criminal. This surely cannot be a new norm. Is this not a direct declaration of war against our state?
Good afternoon to you, Alicia. Yeah, unfortunately so. You know, it's not the first and it's not going to be the last in this present climate that we are living in. We've seen that last year 17 police officers were slain and the year before even more. So what we're seeing is that it seems that your criminals became more brazen and your criminals are also, they lost their fear for the police and their fear for law and order. And now that creates a very difficult situation on the ground, because on the one side you've got political heads and you've got other advisors and also advocacy groups that are actually on the one hand advocating that the police are using too much force, they shouldn't kill so much, etc., etc. On the other hand, you have these policemen who are under doubt now when they may use their firearms and how to use it because of the conflicting reports and conflicting instructions. At the end of the day, you know, the police is guided by their standing orders, and those standing orders are actually drawn up in line with the law. So if they only follow those regulations and they follow all those standing orders, you know, they will be safe. But when you create doubt within that police officer that has to actually you make a split-second decision whether to use his firearm or not, that is the danger that we are in today, especially in the circumstances where your criminals lost their fear for the police.
You know, Willem, that's actually the point that I want us to talk about today. This different messaging as well as views from those at the helm of the policing service. So what action do you think is actually needed to deal with this criminality, Willem? It's very frustrating that we constantly are under attack and nobody is safe, including those responsible to keeping us safe. Firstly, how do you even think this criminal even managed to accost 2 police officers? Should he not have been at the back of the van, one, cuffed as well as shackled and heavily guarded as a dangerous criminal since it's described that way? And what are the safety handling protocols regarding such criminals?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. We do not have a lot of information as the situation is unfolding, as well as the investigation. But what emanated from the press reports is that they were traveling in a sedan vehicle. It were 2 detectives that were transporting this awaiting trial suspect. And, you know, in terms of the standing orders that I mentioned, that is more or less the manual for the police on how to perform their daily tasks, from signing on duty, from driving a car, from everything. They got all of those rules and regulations in their standing orders. Also, how to transport a suspect. And that ensures that the suspect's rights are protected, but also that the police officers are safe when they do so. So we do not know if they followed these protocols. We do not know if the hands were actually shackled behind or behind his back. And also we see that some incidents, they say that foot shackles have been found on the scene. So it seems that was there, but we do not know how will they say, so they safeguarded this suspect, and whether the suspect was then able to overpower them with their own firearms while they were driving, or whether he got hold of a firearm while at the court. We do not know it yet. But the situation is unacceptable, and it should be investigated, and we should look at ways to prevent this in future.
You know, judging by current police capabilities, Willem, especially when it comes to capturing the foreign national criminals, what is the likelihood, you think, that they will actually apprehend this Moyo guy? And again, we are here discussing the lack of monitoring of our borders, Willem. We spoke about this just last week, as well as tracking illegal foreigners who come to the country to commit these egregious crimes, knowing very well they can just disappear. This should not be tolerated. How do we address this issue as a country?
Yeah, it's challenging. You know, it seems that they mentioned that this person was from Zimbabwe. We know how porous our borders are. And one thing that we should remember, you know, earlier this year with Mozambique, when there was a prison break, within hours, some of those prisoners that escaped were apprehended in South Africa. So it just demonstrates to you the porosity of our borders, and also these criminals that, for a criminal, international border is a river to cross. For the police and law enforcement, they have to go through protocols, etc., that block them from actually pursuing these criminals. So there's a lot of procedures in place in order to do so. So that just restricts the law enforcement in order to apprehend these people. Apart from that, with these undocumented people that are in our country, we don't have their biometrics, they don't have passports, they don't have ID documents, etc., etc. That makes it much more difficult for law enforcement to track them down.
And how should police, back to that issue of the different messaging, Willem, how should police deal with such brazen criminals, Willem? There was criticism when Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi actually made these statements that when thugs come for police, they actually approach them with guns and intend to kill them. 2 police officials are dead. Their families will forever be impacted. How do you negotiate with evil criminals who have no regard for human life? What's the best tactical approach under these circumstances? I know that the new acting minister has now since come out and said, of course, the loss of these 2 police officials after visiting their families was a direct declaration of war against the state.
Yeah, that was actually good and forthcoming from the minister to support the people. But we have to stop with words. We have to come to look at actions at the moment. It's not a secret that our rule of law pillar in our society has crumbled. It is disintegrated, and it fails to keep up the roof of a functioning state that we are actually in at the moment. So that just it threatens the country, the stability of the country, and everything else, apart from our safety and our security. That is why now it's an ideal opportunity. The police is in deep trouble. The law and order is in deep trouble at the moment, and that comes from the events of the past weeks. We've got a minister that has been suspended. Or asked to step aside for a while. We've got an acting minister. We've got a national commissioner under threat of arrest and speculations of him being arrested. We've got the crime intelligence top management that is arrested, etc., etc. We've got former police commissioners and national commissioners that are up for crimes and so on. So that just demonstrates to you that things are really not well within the police. So now is the ideal opportunity to sit down and bring all the different role players from a private sector, from the civil society, from also the tertiary institutions, etc., and even bring in some people from outside, from other countries that experience similar challenges as that. Sit around the table and develop a strategy that will actually bring us out of this, because the way we have been doing it so far is certainly not working.
I say dismantle the whole thing from the top. Willem, you're opposed to this, of course. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Willem. As always, great analysis there with Mr. Willem Els, who's the Senior Training Coordinator at ISS, as well as a security expert there, weighing in on the safety of police in the line of duty.